Hey class, welcome to week 7. I have gotten through all of your videos. You all did a great job. It was really good to see you all do your best with establishing a group. Hopefully this was a great way to learn how to manage group work, just from having that one live example. Hopefully in whatever you do, you will get opportunities to lead group. Just it's good to diversify what you will do in the future. Even if that's not something you do exclusively once licensed, it's good to have the experience and or all experiences in your practicum work. Next week we won't have a live lecture due to it being our last week and everything needing to be turned in. So I wanted to go over briefly, I wanted to go over your capstone, which is a group intervention. So it will be the capstone project provides opportunity for students to demonstrate their ability to apply the theories and techniques that you learned from your textbook and put them into a group. The proposed group should target particular disorder or life stressor. So you could do an anxiety group. Some of you might want to even model the group that you use, that you did for your role play. But you're basically kind of outlining what the group would look like. You don't need to create a script of like, then Susie said, then Billy said. You don't need to do anything like that. You're just trying to outline like, here's a plan for somebody else. Like you're almost wanting to hand over a plan that somebody else could use and use this plan to run the group based on what you wrote. Okay, so we're going to look at the background of the group, like why you picked this group, why it's beneficial for this particular population. Where would you hold the group, what time, all the logistical things. Is it open group, closed group, considerations of multicultural perspective, legal and ethical issues, outline of the weekly topics, provide detailed description of one full session. And then you're supposed to use at least 10 peer-reviewed journal articles, okay? There is a sample of a group intervention paper in here, and so that hopefully will help you. I'm going to go look right now to the syllabus to see what it says. So your final exam is due week 8, day 5. So if we count day 1 as Monday, so Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So your final is due Friday of next week. Your capstone is due Thursday. So it's due a little sooner. Okay. Just wanted to give you a heads up about that. That way there's no confusion on the capstone. If you just so happen to get a review for the course, please don't hesitate to take it because I will give you extra credit points. However, I am not now given a list of students who have taken the course evaluation. So if you want to email me that you've taken care of the course evaluation or you filled it out, then I will go ahead and give you the extra credit points. Okay, so chapter 10 and 11, we will be talking about some trauma, and that this could be a little triggering, not to cause any issues. It's just some things to know about group with trauma. Group can happen in school settings. A lot of times it's more preventative or intervention, social skills groups. You can have anxiety groups, grief groups. For kids, there's stuff for high-risk youth, things of that nature. Therapy in school looks a little different. I have a site that I work within Riverside Unified School District. And what we do is we offer social and emotional minutes for kids with IEPs. So our counseling is very school-based counseling. And so, that looks different than maybe a traditional psychotherapy type group and or session outside of a school setting, because we're looking at how their behavior or social emotional issues are affecting school directly, not necessarily out in their personal life. This sometimes can be confusing, but that is something that we do. And so school-based therapy groups therapy in general can look very different like than a clinical setting. Okay, so working with adolescents, you're going to still need consent. So what's the proposal, the goals, the rationale, why it would be beneficial to adolescents or children. When we're trying to convince grown adults for group, now we're kind of trying to convince parents and the minors, because consent can be done with minors for themselves at a certain age. But like most parents like to be involved. I think even if my kid was in high school, I would like to be involved or at least know what my kid is doing. And so it's important that we're clear in our expectations, so that parents are aware of what's happening and the purpose of group. Knowing, like, again, not all of you may be in California, so knowing the laws that are expected of you from wherever you're from, that's important. Do not tell children that you can keep everything they discussed confidential, because that's not true. There's limits of confidentiality, not to mention you're in a group. So you still have to have the same kind of confidentiality conversation as you would have with adult members, because they could leak things out to their peers or to their friends. If anything, confidentiality is a little bit more intimidating in a minor group, let's say at a high school or an elementary school or junior high, because these people actually could know people that they know. And so really stressing that confidentiality amongst each other is really going to be really important to stress. And it might create some level of mistrust. It might be harder for people to trust just because these people could know people they know. Making sure we maintain neutrality. Want to make sure we have a size of a group that we can work with that's not too much, where we can get overpowered. Reminding them the plan of the group, when the group will end, what the expectations are, what the rules are. That still matters even when they're minors. All these things are still very important, whether you be an adult or a minor. Okay. The adolescent period of life is characterized by searching for identity and clarifying a system of values that will influence the course of one's life. There's a lot of tension in that area between home and school. Peers become an important source of support, which makes groups and treatment of choice for adolescents, because they are highly influenced by their peers. Now, that can be a very negative thing, but that can also be positive. When you look at kids who are maybe more academically minded, very focused on college or, whatever their dreams are, they tend to get in less trouble than maybe kids who maybe don't have direction or a plan. So a positive group experience could really make a positive impact on an adolescent. So leading adolescent groups, there's challenges. One, could be a lot of drama. There can be maybe humor. It can be a little too much, can be taken out of control. Limits on self-disclosure. And you're just going to have to be very direct as the leader, trying to catch them when they're maybe not being authentic or genuine, and really redirecting them and making them be responsible for how they behave in the group and what that represents. Okay. We need to be mature as the leaders, even though our group members probably won't be the most mature. We need to be an example of maturity. Okay. We may be tested a lot with an adolescent group, but making sure we're mindful of that testing, know that it's coming and not take it personal. It's just the nature of minors. So we need to be mindful of that when working with young people. Now, a little different when you're dealing with a community setting, right? So there's different kinds of groups. You can have gender-specific groups. So groups that work with women, discovering their personal strengths and resources, working on interpersonal relationships, eliminating patriarchal oppression, helping women find their voice, things of that nature. For a men's group, assist in men clarifying their gender roles, provides a context where men can bring all of their feelings into an open space where they feel safe, where they don't feel like they have to be a type of way. Provide a place for connecting with other men. Most men's groups contain psychoeducational component, and maybe that's what draws them in. Okay. There's groups that are for treatment of domestic violence offenders, so for people who do offend. The therapeutic factors, specifically increased universality, cohesion, and interpersonal learning, are potential factors in the reduction of group members to becoming repeat offenders. Solution-focused treatment focuses on holding offenders accountable and responsible for building solutions rather than emphasizing their problems and deficits. So we're honing in on what we want things to look like versus just honing in on how they're wrong and things of that nature. And sometimes because we're limited on time with the group, especially if it's maybe a court mandated group or things of that nature, we can't really dig too much into the past, and maybe it's not the platform for that. And maybe that's where individual therapy comes in, right? But the whole point of group is we want to be able to look to like what we're gonna do versus what has already happened, which can be very freeing for a person. Okay. Substance abuse. We know group is one of those things that we use a lot with substance abuse. They're usually an open group, not necessarily gender specific. They're something that can be held. I mean, I think, when I look at stereotypically AA, they're held all over the nation, all times of the day, really all over the world, all times of the day. And they encourage people to go to so many groups a week. Just to help with sobriety and accountability. So group work is definitely something that's used for specific issues like substance abuse. Cognitive behavioral groups help clients become more aware of connections between thoughts and feelings, which might help with substance abuse. Information, I believe knowledge is power. Some opportunities to do some role playing, things of that nature might be helpful. If someone's in an intensive outpatient or things of that nature, that might be where they get a lot of opportunity to do different things with like a set of people because they're with them all day long. Group members will really get to know each other and see some of their own pathology play out in a inpatient type setting. So some things to be mindful of. Older people, there's a lot of mental health stuff that happens with older people as, it becomes very lonely. Life changes, accepting life for where it's at, end of life stuff, grief, a lot of grieving, a lot of different kinds of grieving, a lot of regret. So group could be something that's very helpful for older people. Especially too, as maybe someone could be a little leery of maybe individual therapy. This might help them ease into that, which would be great. So it's one ways to promote the positive aspects of aging and to help participants cope with developmental tasks of aging. And I think it could help with just feeling support, not feeling alone and isolated. Older adults need a clear explanation of the group. Like a lot of life experience, a lot of experience in general, just because of, an aging person. Revealing personal matters may be extremely difficult for some older adults due to cultural conditioning. I think too, for a lot of older adults, they grew up in a generation where psychotherapy was not very comfortable or common. And so they might feel a little intimidated talking about their business with anybody else. And just because they're closed off, because it feels unsafe. So it might take a little bit of time to get to some of those working stages, things of that nature that we kind of went over earlier. Loss and the struggle to find meaning. These are some different topics: poverty, dependency, feeling of rejection, regret, fears of death and dying, hopelessness, despair, sadness over physical and mental deterioration. All different things that people could talk about in group. So, you just want to make sure that as a leader that you're finding people who fit the criteria correctly, making sure that you're establishing confidentiality, that there could be people with very different value systems, but that's not to take away from what we could learn from one another, and to be able to see each other as human and really learn and glean from one another. Group is a very beautiful process. And if I haven't stressed this enough over the course of the 7 weeks, what can happen in group is so beautiful and so different than what can happen in individual therapy. Not that individual therapy isn't beneficial, but group just opens a wide range of just insights and challenge and growth that I think clients would really benefit from, especially knowing people have walked in similar footsteps as you, especially when it's a common theme that's bringing a set of people together, whether it be PTSD, whether it be sexual assault, whether that be grief, whether it be anxiety. There's some level of I'm not alone. And I think when people feel seen, they grow tremendously. So I hope for you that you'll get this opportunity to experience this as a leader, and or maybe join your own personal group for your own personal health. But I definitely see this group in general as an asset to clients. I recommend groups all the time. There's so many out there. So anyways, I really have appreciated the past few weeks. I hope to have you all in class again. I wish you all the best.